I was able to get on the right bus and get with the right people, and the rest is history.
Welcome to Not Another CEO podcast. I'm your host, David Politis. Every week, we talk to inspiring leaders and get the true stories, the ups and downs, the lessons learned, and come away with actionable advice for our own journeys. Today's guest is Matt Price, the CEO and co-founder of Crescendo. Matt is one of the most experienced and respected operators in the world of customer service. He spent more than a decade at Zendesk, where he helped scale the company globally and eventually led Zendesk Labs, the group responsible for driving innovation and incubating new products that pushed the company into its next chapter. Crescendo, which is his new company, is pioneering a model for customer experience that blends advanced AI with trained specialists to deliver fast, high-quality support at scale. In only 18 months, Crescendo has raised $50 million from firms like General Catalyst and Celesta, and they're on track to cross $100 million of revenue before the end of this year. It's quickly becoming one of the hottest companies in the category. Please welcome Matt Price.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
I'm excited for this. First question, the question I ask every guest: what is the one thing you've done, big or small, at Crescendo that's had the biggest impact, and you do again if you're CEO of another company in the future?
I've been able to assemble an amazing team very quickly. And it's had far and away the biggest impact of anything else that we could have done.
When you talk about team, is that leadership team across the board? Because where is that?
Yeah, it started with leadership team. We were really fortunate to be connected with an amazing engineering and product team early on who already had momentum. And they're the team that built the Genesis Cloud product in the past and had created some amazing things with AI. And so that's an example of just really bringing in very, very high quality founders to hit the ground running. And from that point on, we've been able to pull in people from Salesforce experience, Grok experience, obviously Zendesk experience as well. So really great blend of talent.
What is the number one attribute you look for in people that you bring on early stage crazy growth? Like, what is that number one attribute that you look for?
Curiosity and passion for the vision. That'll take us so far. The hygiene factor is they have to have done the job before, they have to know what they're doing. But there's a lot of people out there who have had these roles. But finding that unique combination of somebody who's incredibly passionate and really curious about the mission is key to us.
Do you think that those people have to come from the space? Like you obviously you know the space better than anyone. Do these people have to come from the space, or can they be from outside of it but just still have a passion for that?
It's not essential, but it helps because the people who have been in our space for a while have been trying to move the needle for the last 20, 30 years on improving customer care. And to be honest, we haven't made that much progress. People are still waiting in queues. They're still getting bad experiences. The AI is changing all of that and radically. And so people who come from the space and who have experienced the past are well suited to talk about how the future works. And that's one thing that's unique about our team and our group is pretty much everybody who's creating the solution has worked or led within customer care. And so our offering comes from that experience and wasn't spun up in an AI lab somewhere from people who've never sat in the role.
And when you talk about this, I am actually very passionate about customer experience, customer support. I had a terrible experience in my first company of how we treated our customers. And I swore to myself, we're going to do it a completely different way. And we were huge Zendesk customers for a long time. And really I'm very passionate about it. Why do you think that it hasn't changed? Was it just technology? Was the problem that AI didn't exist? Was that the problem at the end of the day?
In many respects, yeah, but from a bigger perspective, customer care was constrained by the economics. And in order to deliver customer care up until now, you had to put humans in, a lot of people in. And people tried to find different ways of making processes a bit quicker, doing a bit of self-service, maybe using people who were, in lower cost centers. But really, these were fractional and incremental changes. For most businesses, the competitiveness of their product didn't allow them to spend large amounts on customer care. In fact, only a few companies could, right? So American Express maybe, or Apple, premium price products where they baked in customer care into their offering. But for the rest of the world, we were constrained by that fact. And AI now changes that. AI puts us into a world of abundance. And we need to shift our mindsets now as CX leaders, not from how do I deflect customers? How do I make sure things are just not too bad, to a world where we have a palette of so many options in order to serve customers. So we're moving from being deflectors to creators and innovators.
I love that. This company, you're one of the faster growing companies and top 2, 3 that I've had on this show. It's crazy. I mean, the growth is amazing. I mean, to go from 0 to 100 million in 18 months, 24 months, whatever it ends up being, is a crazy fast amount of time. How is the company changing? Like, is it a new company every week, a new company every month? Like, I've experienced this, but for me, it's over a period of 10 years. It's a new company every 2 or 3 years. This feels to me like it could be every month or quarter. Like, how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of the company where change is not hugely significant, whereby we're actually delivering service and we're operating, we're tuning and evolving that. But there are other parts of the organization that are moving incredibly fast. And, the AI world, there are constant changes in the tools available to you, and the innovation you can create. So we have to make sure with it, from a product perspective, we're constantly taking advantage of those and deploying them very quickly. So, for example, we just released a new capability of multimodal, where you can do chat and voice and share images all in one window, all at one time, which opens up a whole new possibility. And then, of course, there's the scaling of how many people we've just hired 50 people in go-to-market. Well, that changes things radically about how you approach. You can't be doing founder-led sales anymore when you've got that scale. I mean, the trick is really just trying to think ahead, but also sensing and responding. If you see an indicator, drill into it quickly and see what you need to do to tune and fix. But fortunately, like I said, I've got an amazing leadership team who has experience in doing these things.
How fast I'm most curious about, like, the leadership team. Because to your point, you have to have a good leadership team to evolve this fast, to make that many hires, to make these, like, you have to have. How do you operate as a team? Like, is it a daily stand up, a weekly meeting? Is it, one-on-ones? Like, if you had to look at the way your leadership team works, what is the core that everything kind of revolves around?
Yeah, I mean, there's some basic principles on how we operate. I mean, first one is, if something needs to be done, we have somebody who's accountable for leading that and delivering it. So it's either in their function, or if it's something cross-functionally, then we have no ambiguity about who's leading it. The second thing is, pretty much any decision that needs to be made, or any communication needs to be made, needs to involve more than one person. So we don't do a lot of one-on-ones at all. We'll do one-on-ones when people come into the business to help them ramp. But after that, typically it's a group, or it's a group thing. So if we're talking go-to-market, it makes sense. I have my head of marketing in play there, and my head of revenue there in the same conversations, because pretty much anything we talk about reflects both businesses. And then what we do is have a couple of meetings weekly where everybody gets together. There'll be some agendas, and then we have walk-ons. And that's where people can bring in issues that need to be resolved. And again, the outcome of that needs to be an owner or prioritization of what we do. And then the final thing is, our company works quite remotely, but I have an open door policy. People can call myself. I call people. I randomly call the team. I'm a member of the team every morning on my commute. They love it. And it's but keeping those communicating informal channels open as well. So yeah, a number of ways we work in.
But what I hear from you is being in constant communication with each other. And one of the pieces of feedback I got as a leader from my head of people at one point, she said, Dave, you're this hub and we have this hub and spoke model where you're the hub and everyone has meetings with you. And then you go and tell other people what happened in the meetings. You said, this is crazy. Like everything takes so long. And what I'm hearing from you is actually you don't really have that hub and spoke. Every time you have a meeting about a subject, anyone who needs to be involved in that is in that meeting and you're having that conversation together and someone comes out as the owner of whatever gets decided.
That's right. And the best scenario is when that happens and I'm not in the room. And it's just happening within the organization, the connecting and making it work. That's scalability starting to, filter into the organization.
How many people total are in the org now?
Well, I think I mentioned that we have a unique offering where we have AI first, where we deliver AI agents in order to support customers. But we can back that up with humans in the loop, or some people call it forward deployed resources. And that can be as simple as helping a customer with knowledge management and AI deployment. We wrap everything in, and so there's no incremental cost, all the way through to handling level 1 or level 2 or even level 3 support. So for some customers, we manage their whole support. They have one person. And then these are, large $50 million plus companies, one person, and we are their support partner now. And so this is, again, reflecting a new era. So to answer your question, we're a few thousand people now, increasing gradually. And a lot of those people are helping our customers deliver service. And then a number of people are obviously within our core engineering and our go-to-market teams as well.
The thing that you said that actually now is kind of sticking with me, this thing of the problem with support was the economics, which makes a lot of sense. And what I think is there's like this kind of thing right now around AI of a question of, is the solution just AI? But when you think about delivering an amazing experience, if you go all the way to that extreme, you do lose a lot. Like you can go the other extreme. You could basically create a separate problem, which this human in the loop, when we first started talking and you explained it to me, I was like, wow, this is a kind of interesting thing, because you know that at least there's a person there to make sure that that experience is positive, but they can do so much more because of the technology and what the technology can do.
You're exactly right. And so what we see with the customers as we move them onto an AI platform or AI first platform is, firstly, we're incredibly careful on quality. In fact, we have a full quality guarantee. So we only charge per outcomes, and an outcome is a resolved customer inquiry. And in that case, we're just incredibly focused on making sure that there's high quality. What that means is we don't try and get the AI to do too much at first. Because the worst experience is you come onto an AI, it's maybe reasonably good, but the AI is being trained to try and keep you there. And so either starts making mistakes, or you get in this loop and you have to.
I was just going to say, I just had this yesterday and I got into an endless loop, and I was like, please get me out of this. And I'm a pretty technical person. I was trying all kinds of things to get out of a loop, and I'm like, this is going to crush me.
Yep. And so what happens there is that eventually maybe you get flipped to a human. You're able to actually move to it. A lot of people, you can get pretty high AI automation. A lot of people talk 50 plus, 60, 70% a lot of the time. What a lot of people don't think about is they think, oh, that's good. But then until you think about the other third of people and what their experience is like, and they have to go through this AI discussion and get to the point, and then they get transferred to a human. Well, what most customers have not done is change what the handoff is to the human. So they bolted on AI, and then you go through this whole process with with the bot, and then you get transferred to somebody who is a rookie agent, who really just, in many cases, doesn't have the as much knowledge as the AI, and then you have to start again and work through. And that's where we see a lot of negative experiences with bolt-on bots, actually driving lower customer sat in organizations. And obviously, what we do is we've redesigned the whole experience from the bottom up. And so we'll work with our customers to make sure that those handoffs to humans and the quality of the human is very good. Make sure staffing can be done in a way that's live in many more hours. So what we do is we take the savings from the AI, but making sure that we're restructuring the teams to improve customer care all around.
You talked about AI is evolving so quickly that from a product perspective, you have to keep kind of using the technology in the best way. And I talked to a friend who's at one of the coding assisting companies, and he's like, there are weeks where the things that are coming out in the world are so fast. They'll like launch something, and then 2 days later have to relaunch the thing because now there's a new technology. How's that even? And they have a lot of customers. And how do you do? I mean, that is the fastest iteration of, that I've ever seen. Right? You were at Zendesk. I was a very happy Zendesk customer, but it took a long time for these things to come out and the feature releases. Like, how do you do that? And really specifically, like, how do you do that in a way where it doesn't break all the workflows and everything that's going on, and across all your customers, all your agents? Like, how do you do that?
It's a great question. It was the time that I spent at Zendesk and in product companies, and like I say, Zendesk is top class organization, that made me want to do something slightly different when I created my own company. And within a technology company, it is hard because you have these processes. An engineer will have an idea. It then goes through product review cycles. Then maybe it gets on the product roadmap and time is assigned to it. And then they develop it, and then it gets packaged and reviewed, and then it gets localized, and then it goes into early testing with customers, and then finally you release it to the customers. And you kind of think that everybody is just going to adopt it, and then 6 months later you've got 5 or 6 or 10% penetration of this wonderful new feature that you spent all this time doing. So I want to do it slightly differently. And one of the amazing things about the model we have is that we have product engineering, but the people who are using the software sit within the same company as well. The feedback loop is incredibly tight. So not only are we able to get feedback immediately as to how well what we're developing is working, but when it gets deployed, we can enable it incredibly quickly and then make sure it's actually being deployed well based on our forward deployed resources. So this, for us at least, is creating an incredibly tight feedback loop where we can have something in the labs, in 1 week or a couple of days, and then deploy on a customer account, in hours. Or if a customer has identified a special need, I'll give you an example. When we first released our voice product, we realized that it wanted to refer people to URLs sometimes, or refer to other information. And so, but speaking a URL is done because, they're calling you for a reason. So, within hours, we were able to turn on a feature where that would be the SMS to the client. And that's a very tight iteration. It's not a huge amount of engineering, but it's something that can be turned on and then tested within that client, observed very quickly, and then propagated through the rest of the customer base. So those are the fun things, seeing this quick iteration and learning.
That having the employees of your company be the users of the product, that is not to be understood. That makes a lot of sense, because then you can iterate much faster because the communication loop out to the world and to your customers and explaining, and do you want to be on this release cycle or this, you can actually control that entire, it's vertically integrated all the way through.
And that's exactly the right way to think about it, is the vertical integration. That doesn't mean that we have to do everything. We'll partner with our customers, and if they want to just take our AI, we can do that. But more often than not, in order to really make it work, they may be lacking a couple of hires or some skills, and we'll backfill those immediately such that they can get to market very quickly. And, we typically have customers live within 30 days, which is really good within the industry.
On ICP, who is the ICP for this? Like, and how narrow is that? Because I don't know, when I heard this for the first time, I hadn't heard of Crescendo, and then I heard it, started looking it up, then started talking to people who use it. My sense is that pretty much anyone could be a customer. I mean, you can have huge customers, you can have tiny customer, like anyone could be a customer. Like, how tight are you on that ICP?
We have customers who range from very large enterprises, international, companies, all the way down to companies that maybe have $10 million in revenue. The exciting thing about our model is the way we can forward deploy resources, and we have a whole pool of people who can help on that. Is it's incredibly scalable. So it scales down as well as scales up. But we think obviously the way you serve customers and the way you address customers within certain markets needs to be different. So we have a very fast-growing mid-market organization, which is very much based upon speed, getting customers up and running, managing their customer service operations. And then we have an enterprise operation where we engage with organizations who are bigger, maybe have some unique requirements, and we support them separately. So, I would say our core ICP is the mid-market, but moving very quickly up market now as more and more organizations want to take advantage of this.
This is your first job as CEO. You've been in a bunch of executive roles, but this is your first job as founder CEO. Is this something that you always knew you wanted to do, and you were just waiting for that right opportunity? Or was it like the right opportunity that spoke to you that said, I need to be CEO, founder CEO? Does that make like, because I asked this question because I talked to a lot of people who are executives, who've been executives at many companies, been very successful, and they'll tell me I'm not ready to be CEO. And I'm like, I don't even know if there's something to prepare you to be ready. I don't know how much more work, how much more experience you need. So I'm just curious, like, was this something you were kind of building towards in your career explicitly, or is this something that just came about? You said, I have to do this.
I was much more focused in my career as I've been through a number of waves. I'm going to age myself here, but the PC wave, the client server wave, the internet wave and .com, and then SaaS. So I'd be fortunate to go through each of those waves, and within each one, an iconic company, or such as Zendesk, for example, on SaaS wave. So I'm much more concerned about being part of a new technology wave and being within an amazing company that's being part of that, and I've had the opportunity to do it. So it really doesn't matter to me the role I've got, as long as it's interesting and it's and I can make a difference. Now, it just so happens within the AI wave, I guess I had enough experience and I've done enough things whereby I was qualified to be a CEO at this particular point in time, and that's how I landed to do this. I'm not necessarily seeking it, but that it's much more about being involved in something new and being on the right bus, being in the right company.
And you worked, if I understand correctly, you worked with General Catalyst kind of to get this thing really together off the ground. Is that correct?
That's right. General Catalyst have an incubation program called the Creation Program. And what they'll try and do is, because these, obviously incredibly smart people are constantly looking at market trends and look for market opportunities. And so they identified a market opportunity in our space. The BPO industry, the market for labor in customer care, is $500 billion a year. And that's conservative estimates. Massive market. Obviously, AI is going to hugely disrupt that. So the thesis is, can we build a company, or can we find a company to invest in that can do this the right way? And they were unable to find a company that was right. There's plenty of bolt-on bots out there, but no company that was addressing the whole approach. So they had the idea to create one and pulled together a number of founders with expertise in disciplines in order to how to do that. Andy Lee from Alorica, such a humble guy, but built from scratch a $2 billion plus contact center business all around the world. And then Chandrasekaran, who was at both Meta and at CPO at Five9. And then I was fortunate enough to be connected because they needed an operator. So I was then brought in the mix there. So yeah, a pretty unique founding story, and obviously with General Catalyst being able to provide us with the financial backing to move very quickly.
Yeah, that's it feels to me like this is becoming I'm hearing more of this from some of these really big successful firms that they're going all the way to inception kind of phase, the stage, and they have the opinions, they see the market, they see so much in the market, and they kind of go down to this stage. And it's an interesting model. I've had conversations with a couple of them about different things in the IT space and everything. And it's an interesting model because as a founder, you really do de-risk in a good way. You de-risk a lot. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of the reasons that people do not become founders is purely the risk of, will I be able to fund this? Will I be able, like that is, I think there's a lot of people who would be amazing founders. They just literally cannot take the risk with their family and their this and their that. And so having this model for me is actually quite interesting because it feels like it really gives you the ability to found the company for the right reason, which is like, there needs to be this company, but you can remove at least some. I mean, of course you're taking risk and everything, but you're releasing at least some of that fear. Does that resonate like that?
Yeah, I would say it's very friendly model for experienced founders and operators. Because of the reasons you explained. And obviously because of that, you get a lot of benefit because you have people who are experienced in running this.
That's what I'm saying. These are the people that wouldn't I mean, I don't know every person who goes through it, but I know some that would never do it if it wasn't for this model, but they're very good.
That's right. Or they've done things before and they want space to be able to, evolve it and focus on the problem at hand. And to your point, worry less about fundraising. And also use the network to be connected with other people who can help on the project. So you're right. Right out of the gate, a company like Crescendo has a much bigger chance of being, a multi-billion-dollar company than if I'd gone and locked myself in a basement for 3 to 6 months and tried to figure out what we should be doing.
You, as CEO, what is the one thing that you thought would be easy about the job, but turned out to be hard?
Oh, that's such a good question. Like everything. No, it's I think something I didn't really think about so much was part of your job is to really keep the company focused. When you are a fast-growing company in a fast-growing market, you get so many opportunities come to you, so many of them being flattering, large partners wanting to partner with you, everybody wants a conversation with you. And being somewhat, I wouldn't say ruthless, but being polite on the assessment of, okay, does this help us get to our next stage? Where we're at, and does it help us to get to where we are? So I think I underestimated the amount of inbound and a lot of interest that there would be in the business, which is obviously very flattering. But the thing that comes with that is also making sure that you're spending on time what matters today rather than, and on the immediate horizon. And so, and that's about getting customers successful, and then building from.
Yeah, that advice, if people there's a lot to take away from this so far, but if they take that away, that's such important advice. I talk to so many CEOs who say, oh, I gotta, this Workday reached out to me, Salesforce reached out to me, Google. I said, okay, Bank of America wants to buy my product. I'm like, you don't even have a single customer. Bank of America reached out, like, they're not buying your product. Like, let's not even waste the energy on this. But it is very, you said it interesting. Like, you feel it's flattering. You kind of get some outreach of Salesforce wants to talk to me, and you're like, okay. Then you realize, first of all, half the conversations are then just digging because they just want to copy whatever you have. And then the other part of the conversations are them, just like learning and talking and blah, 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 blah. But it's going to be years if anything ever comes of it. And it can put you, I mean, it can literally be such a distraction for the CEO because, of course, they want the CEO involved and they want this. And like, so that advice is gold.
Yeah, I mean, many cases, I mean, it's rare that I won't take a conversation. It's good, I mean, it doesn't have to be long, and you learn a lot from the engagement and what people are trying to understand and where they're coming to. I feel like part of the job of the CEO, though, is also to protect the organization from anything that would be a distraction. So, as many cases, I'll keep the relationship going, and when I feel the time is right, then I'll involve other people from the organization rather than having them spinning up wheels, because the challenge then is that, this has come from the CEO and it's a big brand. Therefore, I need to make sure I absolutely put all my best effort into this. Whereas actually all you want them to do is put 3% attention, focus on their main job. So, making sure that alignment works, and that's the other thing from a, CEO perspective, I'm sure other people will understand, is just being respectful of when you ask somebody to do something, especially as the company grows, that thing becomes very important to them. Just by the very nature of it, it's the CEO asking them to do it. So being careful about spinning up ideas, or if you're brainstorming, making sure that something is being, that the person who you're working with in that moment understands what your expectations are, what they should or shouldn't be doing after that conversation.
When you say, I think we don't, CEOs, I think, when I talk to most of them, including myself, we all have imposter syndrome. Most people have imposter syndrome to some degree. And you think to yourself, like, okay, I have the title of CEO, but I'm just like anybody else. But then to your point, sometimes that is not, I mean, it's true to yourself, but when you say to someone, hey, I think we should do this, they say, oh, the CEO, Matt said. And now they probably telling their colleagues, no, I got to work, Matt said.
Especially if you grow really fast, I mean, just over a year ago, we all knew each other, it's like 10, 15 people. And so you have to change your operating and communication patterns when you're thousands of people within an organization. And there's this constant recalibration of understanding of where you are in the business and how you should be communicating and how you should be interacting with team members, because not everybody in the business you've had a chance to have a beer with or a coffee with.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's, I think it's an important point, they're just constantly thinking about what that impact is on the business and making sure that you're not distracting people.
Right. On the flip side, you can actually use that. As you're saying all this to me, you can use it on the flip side, which is you calling someone or saying good job or something like that. A small thing means so much to people just because, again, you have the title, which is a weird thing, but it's true. Like, I'm sure if you go and call someone and say, great job on that deal, great, they're telling their friend, their family, like, CEO called me and said this,
Yeah, that is right. I mean, I spend a lot of time, we have a number of Slack channels. I spent a lot of time reading in Slack channels and then dropping notes in here and there. So acknowledging somebody who's done a good job, or all the things that we like. But also I have, obviously as CEO, you have the power to prioritize as well. So every one of our customers who goes live, we're monitoring everything that's going on. We're monitoring what is the quality, how well is the AI, are the handoffs happening well, which is unique, I think, for our business, being able to see things end to end. So I'll spend a lot of time monitoring in those channels, see what's going on. And sometimes you spot things, that maybe something's falling through a crack, and that's some of the power you have. I can I can get in there and I can get stuff solved in 5-10 minutes, but it might have taken a bit longer. So it's all about using the power for good, right? It's
Yeah.
focusing on the right things.
I want to go back something you said about the outcome-based pricing that you mentioned. Feels like something that's a lot of people are talking about now is like pricing is going to change. Do you believe for your business, I think what you described makes sense. Do you think this is just where the market is going, that the whole SaaS per seat model, like, is that going to outcome based across the board or just in the logical places like this?
There's definitely a trend towards it. It's and at a philosophical level, it makes a lot of sense. If you think about our business, you've got an end user who just wants to get a problem solved any time of the day. Their outcome is that they can contact you and they can get their answer. That actually doesn't match at all to the incentives of maybe a seat-based SaaS product or a BPO that's charging for labor, or the organization that's the client that's providing the support that is looking to get as much CSAT as possible in for the most economic way. The great thing about outcome-based pricing is that you can align all the way through the chain, from the customer to the client to the actual providers. The challenge that we have at the moment is that a lot of people talk about outcome-based when they're just providing one small slice of the solution. So we talked earlier about, say, bolt-on bots that talk about outcomes and they resolved so many things. But what they've also done is on the back end, reduced CSAT by 10% on the rest of the business. And they're not being penalized for that outcome. They're not being rewarded, but they're not being penalized. So I think we're seeing the beginnings of it. What we like about it for our business are the two things. Firstly, we can genuinely say that an outcome is end to end, from the inception of the customer to delivery of the resolution. But the other thing I like about it is when you start a business, you actually think a lot about how do you establish things early on in the business before it gets too late, so that can be formative. What are the silver bullets, or what are the systemic things? And I think what we discovered quite early on is if you charge your customers according to hours or seats, everyone in the company thinks about hours and seats because everyone in the company knows how you get paid. Whereas actually, if you think about it as outcomes, if we don't get paid for a DSAT, which is we don't, then everybody in the organization is motivated not to create DSATs, even if it was their fault or not. And this for me is a surprising outcome of outcome-based is the way that you can use this to focus your company on the right things.
That's a good point, right? If everyone thinks in seats, you're constantly thinking, how do we get more seats? I mean, basically.
Yeah, I'll tell you what BPOs do. I mean, BPOs, they provide labor. And in the classic BPO model, companies will try and get the lowest cost labor they possibly can, and for the highest quality people. And they'll do a lot of due diligence. They'll go around a lot of BPOs and sort of focus on where they are. But when all you have to sell is labor, the solution to everything is you try and sell more labor.
It's the only way to grow the account base. Yeah.
Yeah, you say the ratio of you want high quality, the ratio of people to managers needs to be 1-6. And when you go above 6, and you need another manager. And what you end up with is a heap of waste and hidden cost. And same thing on tech, by the way. The number of seats that get wasted that people aren't used it. So the amount of waste in the business is huge, even without AI. And so what we're finding is with outcome-based, we're finding a way to eliminate a lot of that waste and then repurpose it to where it should be. And what that might mean is that you can move hours, extend hours, you can add another language, you can innovate a new function as well. And that's a cool outcome of outcome.
And the challenge, the good thing for you is that anyone, the BPOs, the incumbents, you can't really do this because you literally would cannibalize the entire business. I mean, they can't, and the whole business would collapse, basically.
Yeah, I mean, changing any type of foundational pricing model is or the way you get paid is incredibly difficult for a company of any size. You're changing philosophies, structures, reporting
Systems.
mechanisms, systems. Yeah, I mean, right? So so I think that's one thing, and I think that we're seeing this as a challenge for a lot of the SaaS companies at the moment. Is a lot of them trying to move to this model, but it's confusing for the customers about when are they paying for seats, when are they paying for usage. They want to switch from seats to usage, and ultimately, there's no net gain, for a lot of the organization. So it's challenging. And again, part of the thing about building a new business is understanding the privilege that you have is to invent things in a new era. So we've invented our companies in the AI era. That means our product is fully integrated for AI and it's AI ready and based upon LLMs. But it also means that our economic model, outcome-based being the new economic model, we're born in the era of outcome-based. And so we don't have the legacy that we have to deal with there either.
You've grown this fast in this period of time. Part of it has been you've acquired companies. To grow this fast in this period of time, also acquiring companies, like you're like compiling every hard thing on top of itself, like to do that. Like, do you have an M&A kind of background machinery like that you brought to the table? Is that something General Catalyst, other co-founders, like how have you been able to do that? How much of that have you been doing? How core is that to the strategy?
M&A is core to our strategy. I mean, this is a huge market opportunity, but AI for customer service is a crowded market. So, I mean, we have amazing technology. I would say it's the best technology for AI for sales, but that in a noisy market, that doesn't just automatically make you grow and successful. So you've got to have great distribution. And you've got to have a unique approach to distribution. So when we founded the company, we said that, okay, we're going to try a different approach here, and we're going to buy BPOs, who are labor-based BPOs, and there are thousands of them. And what we'll do is that we will then help their customers upgrade to be AI native using our technology, and we'll give them lots of support and incentive in order to do that. We'll retrain the teams, and we'll do everything for them to move up to that level. And that was our hypothesis. So we did that with we've done that, and we've proven it works. We have hundreds of happy customers who have gone through this process. They haven't had to spend an extra dime. They haven't had to invest anything else in customer care. We just take care of it for them in the same way that we would take care of them before. So obviously that is quite unique because there's more to the simple way is to just organically attract customers. And then you run them through your cycle. And we do have that model. We have a lot of people coming to us. We do, but some people call it a roll-up, approach is a great way to get accelerated distribution and bring our value quicker, to customers. Going back to your original question, because that was part of the original philosophy, Andy, a co-founder, had done many acquisition deals before. I integrated, I think, the last 3 or 4 acquisitions into Zendesk. That was part of my role at Labs when I was there. So we know a thing or two about it. Everything's unique, but
you have those muscles on the team.
Yeah, you can. You know what to think about. What actions to take, because you're acquiring an amazing asset in the business with customers and employees, and just making sure that you do the right things by them up front. And you have financial objectives from the acquisition. But it's very tempting to be focused in the immediate term on those rather than taking care of what's really important for the long run, which is a fast and fantastic integrated culture where people feel reassured about the future and feel very motivated about the combined offering.
It feels like in this new world, in this AI era, this is a obvious, like when you have the capital, when you have the team, when you have the technology, this seems like just because to the conversation we just had, the BPO can't reinvent themselves, but you can reinvent that.
That's right. BPOs, And don't get me wrong, I mean, the founders and leaders of these organizations are very impressive people. They built, business that built businesses, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, run good operations in a short amount of time, take care of other people's customer care in a great way. But and many of them have actually created technology divisions in order to help their customers. Very, very few, in fact, I can't think of any who have succeeded in doing that. And there's just a dynamic of, to attract the caliber of AI engineer that we have within our organization. It helps to be venture funded. It helps if there's upside. It helps if you've got an ethos there. So Crescendo very much is this fusion of Silicon Valley deep AI tech plus and then we take the BPO resources and we think actually first about how do we use those people to enhance the deployment of AI. And once you get into that mindset, you're a product company that has amazing people support rather than a people company that's trying to bolt on some technology. When that doesn't work.
It's only been 18 months, but I ask every guest this question. What is the biggest challenge you've faced so far at Crescendo, and how have you overcome that if you have?
I think the biggest challenge goes back to what we said before is just ruthless prioritization in the moment of what to focus on. But the challenge changes the challenges change every month, kind of thing. I mean, 18 months ago, I was setting up Gusto myself. And probably the biggest challenge was actually trying to hand that off and remember the password and, and make sure that went into the operation. So, there's just things day to day of taking things out of that. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad I did all of that. Maybe I would have hired a fractional CFO a little bit earlier.
When I was told the first time they said you can no longer be the admin of Google Apps, I was very upset. I was like, and then afterwards, I was very happy that I wasn't the one adding users, so I know the feeling.
Exactly.
Where's Crescendo in 2029, basically, like 3 years from today? What does the company look like?
We are a multi-billion-dollar organization. With one of the category leaders within this new era of AI, CX AI, the pure play platforms that are really providing this concierge level in front of companies doing customer service and shopping. We have defined the market whereby nobody would dream of now trying to assemble 5 or 6 or 7 different tools. And hiring a bunch of people in the same way that any mid-market manufacturer now wouldn't dream of building their own production line and staffing it. And so we will be associated with the company that defined this new all-in AI native approach, whereby a customer service leader is not spending all of their day evaluating different tech and trying to piece it together and figure out where it's gone wrong and hiring people and figuring out how to staff extra shifts. They're service designers, like Catherine at Lovepop, like Anthony at Rasho, our partners there, and we are the people taking care of delivering the service for them.
Okay, I want to transition to your background a little bit. Where are you from originally?
I'm from a small town in England called Gloucester, which is where I grew up. It's not incredibly well known, but unless you're into rugby.
Yes, yeah. And did you grow up knowing you wanted to be in business, a leader, an entrepreneur? Was that something, from an early age you knew, or that wasn't till later in life?
It wasn't till later in life. I knew I hated school. I didn't hate it as much, but sitting down in a classroom and sitting there and studying the same thing for hours on end wasn't my gig. So I was very into doing things. I think I saw my first computer a while back, and it was in a department store in the UK. And for some reason, I was like a moth to a flame. I attracted it, and I would every day after school, I would walk into town and I would basically hang around in the computers and play around with them. And after a while, I think they thought I worked there, and And rather than throwing me out, I think I sold more computers than anybody to anybody. So they let me hang out there. And so I learned to code in a department store initially. And then gradually convinced my parents to get me a computer. And then that was the thing that got me into college because I didn't study enough in the things I should have been studying, but I could code. And I guess, so back to your question, I guess that was indicative of one is Craig or do something.
Whoa. You actually like went to the department store, like you would stand there for like
I'd stand in front of their machines, yeah, and just like play around with them initially, and just through iteration. I mean, I was just like trying to figure stuff out. I figured, I don't know, maybe I figured out there was a help commands clause and it would just experiment. What does this thing do? But there was some cool stuff that happened. I then went on and started to do advanced math, and then I suddenly realized, oh, okay, now I can. What I'm learning, while I'm learning theoretically here, I can actually implement, in code. And if I'm learning about, I can't remember, like sine waves or I can use a sine wave function to do a missile game. You can adjust the variables on those things. I guess that again, that's curiosity and discovery. That's fun stuff. That's very good.
What did your parents think during that time? Like, were they concerned that you weren't like doing well in school and spending all the time with the computer, or was
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think they knew what to think really. I mean, they knew I was spending a lot of time in my bedroom, and as parents of young kids that have gone through teenage, you don't ask too many questions. But they were starting to see results come in. I mean, computers were pretty new at that time, so people weren't quite sure what was going on. But no, I managed to hold it down enough at school. There weren't red flags.
And what was your first job your first job after university or after?
Yeah, I knew nothing about business or anything. I mean, I wish I'd known what I know now. I mean, I really knew nothing about how business is created and anything. So I just answered an ad in the paper for somebody to do technical support for a software company and thought, oh, I can maybe do that. And I showed up. And this is serendipity. It turned out to be a company called Borland. My first job was answering tech support calls for C++, Turbo C compiler and Turbo Pascal compiler, which were the huge things that made for the listeners or viewers that aren't aware, look up Borland and what Philippe Kahn did, an amazing entrepreneur at that time. And a year later, I was in the marketing team in California, and because the company had grown so quickly. So, and from that group in time, the guy who ran a direct marketing was a guy called Mark Randolph. He went on to found Netflix. My lead engineer was Anders Halsberg. He became essentially the guy that invented C# at Microsoft. So somehow luck was with me. I managed to get on this. Wow. That's what I was saying before. I was able to get on the right bus and get with the right people, and the rest is history.
I mean, the tech support is literally full circle, basically, to where you are today.
No, and I say that to the team, I mean, I know what it's like. This customer service is a hard job. It's like, and when we talk about AI, we talk about, okay, it's a hard job, but let's use these tools to make it easier for us. Let's make it such that it used to be that you would be a rookie in customer service and pretty much many questions you didn't know the answer to. Well, now we provide our associates, like customer service associate, with expert assistance where they can get those answers very quickly, and customers come to them less frustrated because they haven't been waiting so long on hold times.
So you actually did the job. Yes. What was the biggest break in your career?
Joining Zendesk. It was, 40-person company at the time. And I wasn't even sure whether to join them. I had quite a good job, as CMO for a tech company, but I just started following them on Twitter as it was at the time and look into it. And SaaS seemed really interesting. It seemed like a company that was going somewhere. So it was a bit of a leap. And then 10 years later, it's gone public. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization, but the people there are amazing. Mikkel, the CEO, I learned so much from him. Amazing founder and leader.
Um, did you have a mentor or something? Like, have you had a mentor throughout your career, or someone that's really throughout, not maybe the whole career, but just someone that you lean on and have learned from specifically? I know, I'm sure many people, but
Yeah, there are a few people. There's one person that's been consistent. I've been in touch with actually a guy who I met at Borland in the early days, a guy called Zach Locker. And Zach, I was delighted, came and helped me scale the business for a while at Crescendo as well. Zach has had an amazing career in scaling businesses. Now I think he's an operational partner at Index Ventures or something. So he's an incredibly supportive person.
in terms of like to do this job, to be a CEO, to do any of the jobs, but to be a CEO, like it's a lot, it's a lot every day. And of course, everyone's carrying the weight, but you're carrying the most of the weight on your shoulders, no matter what company it is. What is it that drives you? Like on a day-to-day basis, what is it that drives you, motivates you, and keeps you like going through all the challenging times and the exhaustion and everything? What is it at the core that drives you?
I joke about this sometimes, but I'll give you an example, and it's things like this. So we have a company, Love Pop. They do greeting cards.
I love that. Love that. I love that company.
Yeah, they are amazing. They have a fantastic product. And actually, they have a great customer service ethos. So if something goes wrong, they will fix it for you. So if the card's not right. The challenge they were having before we started working with them was that even though they had great product philosophy, it was difficult for them within company economics to staff enough people to respond immediately to customers who are having an issue. What we were able to do is take them from a 24-hour resolution right down to a 15-minute resolution using AI and our people and restructuring. The outcome of this was that once we started to do it, they just started getting these 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, one after another, for customer service. And what was happening was that in the same way you show passion for the product because it is so cool, is that those people in the moment, trying to get a card to somebody, and if it's not going well, when we flipped the switch, we used the abundance of AI to solve things for customers in that moment. And it's just been, it's incredibly fulfilling to see, wow, this thing is real. We are really able to fulfill on the promise and change customer care for people, forever. But also change customer care for now. Their Trustpilot ratings went from a 3.6, which is average, to a 4.6, which is excellent, within the space of a few weeks. And everybody who's in e-commerce knows what that impact has on sales conversion. So we were able to partner with Catherine there, an amazing CX leader with foresight and forethought, and do something that has made a huge difference to consumers and also the business as well. That's incredibly much. So if I have dark moments, I'll just go and read Love Pop, Trustpilot reviews. Happens to me.
All right, last question for you. Knowing everything you know today, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice before you started that technical support job, what would that one piece of advice be?
Think big. Just really, I think I'd probably been able to do and been able to experience so much more than I ever thought. I give myself a little bit of credit of being able to seize opportunities when they've come and work hard in order to do it. But spend more time really just thinking about what it would take to do something bigger, and not be bounded by what I thought I should be doing, but really think about more of what I could be doing and what it would take to begin.
Good way to end the episode. Matt, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Congrats on quick success, and I hope it continues. I'm excited about what you're doing, and there was a lot of gold in this episode, a lot of things for people to learn from. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you,
David. Thanks to you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Really nice hour or so we spent together.
Awesome. For those listening, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please share this out with your networks, and we'll see you for the next episode of Not Another CEO Podcast. That's a wrap for this week's episode of Not Another CEO Podcast. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, please visit notanotherceopodcast.com. We'll see you next week.